So just a few hours ago, the Labour Party's big and small wigs met to bring into effect the Supreme Court judgment that threw out the regime of Julius Abure, depending on who you ask. After months in which Mr. Abure and his supporters made legendary attempts to rip up the rule book and install themselves in office, bringing the party to its highest level of public disrepute in years, the faithful appear to have come together and say they are confident they can now move things forward. They say that following today's meeting, in which they unanimously ratified the leadership of Senator Nenadi Usman and her National Caretaker Committee, a new direction is being forged as they prepare to put in place a program for the conduct of ward, local government and state congresses, as well as the national convention of the party. So, after months of uncertainty, during which confidence was undermined in the party, that Peter Obi took to the greatest, almost unimaginable heights, is the worst now over? Well, not if you ask Julius Abure and his supporters, who say they are fighting back. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by Senator Victor Umeh, who represents Anambra Central at the National Assembly under the umbrella of the Labour Party. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. And I have to apologize sincerely because we ate into your time because of the technical problems we had at the outset with Governor Soludo's microphone in Oka. What exactly is the situation now? We're hearing conflicting views, so let me ask you directly. Julius Abure was invited to this meeting today. He didn't attend, did he?
He didn't attend, of course.
Right. So
we weren't expecting him.
Well, you invited
based on what he has been saying.
Right. But you called a meeting to, according to you, bring into effect the Supreme Court judgment. What happened?
Well, the Supreme Court judgment does not need to elicit any controversy anymore. In a simple man's understanding of issues, there was an appeal against two judgments of the trial court and the Court of Appeal, and that appeal was brought by Senator Nenadi Usman, appealing as chairman, National Caretaker Committee of the Labour Party, alongside with the secretary, Senator Darlington Wokocha, as secretary of that committee. They are the appellants. So they came to the Court of Appeal against the judgment that recognized Julius Abure as national chairman of Labour Party. And the appeal succeeded. And the cross appeal filed by Julius Abure was dismissed by the Supreme Court. So looking at this ordinary presentation, you will know that somebody won and somebody lost. There's no way somebody who lost an appeal will come back and say, nothing happened to me. I'm still where I am.
With all due respect, Senator, if you boil down what the Supreme Court said, the court said that you have to use your own internal mechanism to sort out the problem.
Yes.
That's really what it says when you boil it down. So the question is, which one of the two groups is ascendant? Is it Nenadi Usman or Julius Abure?
Of course, it should be Nenadi Usman and his group and her group. Before this matter went to court, you have to understand that INEC had taken a position on the leadership of Labour Party, that the tenure of office of Abure and his led executive had expired and ceased to deal with them as officers of Labour Party.
Yeah, but INEC also had to obey the subsisting court ruling when it came up.
Yes, now the court, because they started recognizing Julius Abure as national chairman with his team, based on court order. And those court orders, the trial court and the Court of Appeal, have been set aside. So the orders the two courts made directing INEC to recognize Abure as national chairman of Labour Party had been set aside by the Supreme Court. What it means is that we have now been returned to the position where INEC rightly determined as the monitor and regulator of political parties.
Yeah, but the
that
problem,
their tenure has ceased to exist.
The problem,
and the party
Senator,
had taken some steps
right,
to fill the vacuum.
Yeah, but who is the party? That's the question, because there are two sides to this, and they're both interpreting that Supreme Court judgment differently. I mean, Ms. Usman says it's in her favor. Mr. Abure says it's in his favor. Do you think, I mean, is it necessary to approach the courts for clearer interpretation?
I mean, if you read the concluding pages of this judgment,
and I have looked
you have it. Yes, you will see where the Supreme Court summarized their findings on the appeal by saying that the order made by the two courts below, directing that Julius Abure should be recognized as the national chairman of the Labour Party, is hereby set aside. It means that he should no longer be recognized as the chairman of Labour Party.
Yeah, but why does the court then say that you have to use your internal mechanisms to sort out whatever problems you've got?
No, that is the natural thing.
I mean, the decision...
it is the natural thing.
Yeah, but the decision it made was that the appeals court does not have the jurisdictional power to decide the case.
Prior to the matter coming to the Supreme Court, Abure was recognized as national chairman of Labour Party by the orders made by the two courts below. Before then, he was not recognized as chairman of the party because his tenure has expired. He went to court. He was the one who went to court. And the court found in his favor, the trial court and the court of appeal. On further appeal by Nana Usman and the secretary on behalf of the National Caretaker Committee, the Supreme Court set aside the order made in his favor. He filed a cross appeal. The Supreme Court dismissed his cross appeal.
I understand.
How can you now come and begin to say that the state of affairs still remain the same?
Well, but that's what the judgment said.
No, it didn't say so.
It didn't say the state of affairs. It said you needed to use your own internal mechanisms to sort it out.
That's what we have done. We have filled the vacuum by creating the National Caretaker Committee, because we are human beings. Nature abhors vacuum.
Sure.
When INEC rightly determined that his tenure and his colleagues have expired, the party will not lie like that.
Well, let me put it another way.
So the members of the party came together and created
some members of the party, because there's still a group. I mean, I'll give you an example. Mr. Abure, for example, I mean, he still controls your secretariat. He's the one. I mean, you can't even go to your secretariat.
No, you can't say that.
He's the one who's...
We are law-abiding. No, you see, we are law-abiding people.
I understand
don't jump into such conclusions. Let me tell you, Charles. Let me tell you, Charles.
Your secretariat.
No.
He gives his speeches from there.
We are not people who are disobeying orders of court. We were in the process of taking the secretariat, and they ran to the court and got an order that INEC should recognize him. INEC restored recognition to him. We stayed away and went on appeal. Now that the Supreme Court has said that his recognition as chairman of the party was wrong and set it aside, we will move in and continue to operate.
Right.
Yes,
okay.
because
we'll watch how that goes. But why do you think, Senator Umeh, that Mr. Abure is so adamant in this position, which is clearly disruptive to the Labour Party?
He is the one that to answer that question. One, he refused to leave when his tenure expired. And the Supreme Court admonished him, without mentioning his name. He said, any officer of the party whose tenure expires should be humble enough to leave. So he's not humble, he doesn't want to leave. And the party cannot keep him when he failed to do what he ought to do. Assuming he wanted to continue in office, he knew what he would have done, because he entered into a settlement directed by INEC. The parties feuding at that time submitted themselves to alternative dispute resolution in INEC. And there it was agreed that Abure should be allowed. It's not today that they've been dragging him. Like, he should be allowed to continue as chairman. At that time, he was fighting with members of the NLC, who were statutory NEC members in the party. So as a way of allowing them participate in the 2023 general elections, a settlement was midwifed by INEC in the Alternative Dispute Resolution Department, where it was agreed by the parties that Abure should continue as chairman, and after 1 year, he will conduct ward congresses, local government congresses, state congresses, and then all-inclusive national convention within 1 year. Have you seen it? And he signed the agreement with his secretary, Umeh. And this settlement was taken to the Federal High Court, presided over by Justice Gabriel Kolawole, and it was admitted as a consent judgment between the parties. Since that time till today, Abure has not conducted any ward congress, no local government congress, no state congress. And he jumped in to say he has conducted national convention to return himself and his cronies back to office. That's a breach of the agreement.
Right.
It's a breach of the agreement.
Right.
And because of that, he made the mistake. When he wanted to do this, you know, I was former national chairman of Abure for 10 years.
Yes, you were.
So I advised them that you cannot hold a convention without building from the bottom to the top. You must put ward structures in leadership, local government structures in leadership, state structures in leadership. Then these people will now arrive at the final state convention and elect the national officers. Right. It's not a rocket science. I have to apologize. They refused to do all that. Right. And wanted to foist themselves on the party. That's what the Supreme Court told them. Right. If your tenure expires and you fail to do the right thing to renew your leadership, you humbly bow out. They failed to do that, right, and they want to continue.
Well, in spite of all these things, you said the lower courts agreed with him, and you know it was at the Supreme Court where the issue has become. Well, it's still. I mean, it's a bit. You know,
don't be confused about the issue of jurisdiction.
It's a bit muddled.
The issue of jurisdiction is far back in 1983.
I understand
that internal affairs of political parties are not justiciable. Right. It's not a new thing.
Right.
Do you understand?
But let me ask you this, because we're almost out of time, and I really apologize because you should have had more time.
No problem.
What happens next?
What happens next is that, well, if you're no longer recognized by the Independent National Electoral Commission, who will give you the authority to
As the Electoral Commission said, they no longer recognize it.
The Supreme Court has said so.
What have you heard from the Electoral Commission?
Listen, INEC obeyed the Federal High Court and the Court of Appeal in recognizing him. After they refused to recognize him, he went to court. Now, the Supreme Court has now set aside those orders made against INEC to recognize him as national chairman of the Labour Party.
Okay.
Why will INEC not obey it? I'm sure within the next few hours, they will remove his name in the website.
Well,
because they cannot disobey the Supreme Court after obeying the Federal High Court and the Court of Appeal.
Well, we'll wait
the Supreme
and
Court
see.
is the
we'll
final
wait
court.
See how things
and
develop.
There is no court in Nigeria that will order that Julius Abure should be recognized as chairman of the party when Supreme Court has said so.
We'll wait and see what happens.
As to what happens next.
I apologize that we
took
up...
I have 5 minutes more.
No, you haven't got 5 minutes. The other program has to come in
let me tell you. As to what happens next, the National Secretariat Committee will now begin to do those things Abure refused to do.
I can see
they will conduct the congresses.
I can see how you're bullied
at the ward level, at the ward level, at the local government, at the state, and then convention. And we said that Abure is qualified to come and contest.
Yes, you have
if he felt that he has run the party very well. In today's meeting, he was asked to come and contest if he so wishes. Let him come. Let's do the right thing.
Okay.
Let's go by the Constitution. And then do what we need to do.
I think you've made that point. I want to thank you very much indeed, and apologies once again. Victor Umeh represents Anambra Central at the National Assembly under the umbrella of the Labour Party. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja and Anambra State. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.